Alleged drug mule P. Diddy enters a not guilty plea. At the same time, jurors get a first look at the purported freak-off videos. Additionally, when a sealed transcript finds its way to the press, federal judge Submaranian becomes furious. He states categorically that someone is being dishonest. That is the reason why you are viewing Scandal, which is produced by Law&Crime. By the way, my name is Sierra Gillespie. Day 25 is a busy one. Who is the judge? Some sources in the P say he is completely insane and furious. Diddy is on trial. Ewing and S. All this time, we've been talking about these purported freak-off tapes, and now the jury gets to view them. Diddy also has a drug mule. Thus, Brendan Paul is back in the spotlight. Do any of you recall him? And just in case, I've included a little review. Hello, I'm back. Brendan Paul, the man who was taken into custody concurrently with the FBI raids taking place at P. Houses owned by Diddy in Los Angeles and Miami. Weird timing. Last March, he was apprehended at the Miami airport. His first claim to fame was actually his time spent playing collegiate basketball for Syracuse. Vote for the Orange. Paid serious attention. In that you are named as this purported drug mule in Yale Rod's case. Do you all recall? Brendan Paul is allegedly Mr. Combs' drug mule, according to Lil Rod. He gets his hands on the drugs and weaponry that Mr. Combs has and sells them. Then, I guess you're ready to go. What a man. Possession of cocaine and candies laced with marijuana led to his eventual charges. A plea deal was ultimately acceptable, but he is returning to court today to enter his fifth plea. This is the rundown of what happened. Have you been served with a subpoena? The government inquired. Yes, Brendan Paul responds. Is the Fifth Amendment something you plan to use? Yes. Yes. An immunity order is what we suggest. I am going to sub in my entry. Sir, I am much obliged. This is significant, I assure you. According to Brendan Paul, he would take the Fifth Amendment oath during the whole hearing. You know, he's not going to confess because he's afraid the prosecution will go after him for his supposed misdeeds if he does. His immunity will allow him to accomplish it. After the judge signs an order granting Brendan Paul immunity, he will be required to testify. That is to say, it is future, but not yet. So far, here is what our girl, Queen Elizabeth Milner, has to say. Yeah, I believe he's a really crucial witness. Not only was he an assistant, but this is definitely something that might be included. It could be brought up by the defense or the prosecution, or it could go unmentioned entirely. What little is known about Brendan Paul, however, is that he was sort of implicated as a drug mule by virtue of his name being used in a lawsuit against Sean Combs. However, it was revealed throughout the trial that he was actually an aide to Diddy. It seems to me that he felt compelled to use his right to self-incrimination by invoking the Fifth Amendment. You know, in my opinion, it might all boil down to drugs, both the drugs themselves and the quantities that were supplied to Diddy, who may have gotten them from Brendan Paul. Therefore, I am rather interested in hearing his thoughts. It was strange to see him in court today because we've all seen his photo, right? However, witnessing someone like him in person was strange. Impressively tall, he filed suit this morning before to the jury selection in an effort to obtain the judge's approval of his immunity order. However, his stature is quite towering. Suit in hand, he enters the room. He seemed to be rather uncomfortable with this type of testimony. His testimony was compelled by a subpoena, nevertheless. That being said, even when it came to answering Mary Slavic's and Christy Slavic's queries this morning, he seemed disinterested. To find out how he acts when called upon to testify, it will do just that. There's no telling how much or how long it will take for it to trickle into tomorrow. Our next edition of Scandal will feature Brendan Paul's comments when we finished recording. For this episode, let's focus on a scandal that occurred independently. Spectacular courtroom fireworks are my favorite. Thank goodness I got to report on people getting furious and angry today. Judge Aaron Submaranian. Absolute lunacy. He stated this. Someone is being dishonest, he complained. There was a seal on the transcript. I understand. Then, what is he referring to? You understand that there was a sealed proceeding? As a result, everyone is chatting away about something. And the reason I say that is that we are not to understand a word of what they said. First and foremost, nobody who shouldn't have been there was. Second, the transcripts were sealed. Think about it. So it's best if the general population is in the dark. The contents of that conversation, nonetheless, ended up online in some way. As a result, the judge ends up receiving. I will simply state that I am extremely angry and frustrated. Plus, he is curious as to who the leaker is. Several individuals present on Friday blatantly disobeyed the court's directives, he claimed, including the court's sealing order. It was more than that, though. Sure, just a moment. His work is extensive. Let me tell you, this man is serious. According to him, the court ordered the prosecution, the defense, and all defense counsel to remain silent, and everyone involved was held responsible. A breach of the prohibition. Anyone complicit in this matter could face contempt penalties, either civil or criminal. Was that audible to you? Could those responsible for this purported leak face criminal charges? Excuse me, Assistant U.S. Attorney Maureen Comey is the primary target of the next section. In a sense, she serves as the head of state. And last but not least, the Chief of Defense, Mark Agnifilo. According to Judge Aaron Submaranian, blaming others is no longer an option. Only you can make a difference. The responsibility for any outcome rests with the lead counsel. When I said pyrotechnics, I meant it. Are there any potential criminal charges in this case? For clarification, let's return to Elizabeth Milner. Very much so. It was something that, to be honest, took a number of us by surprise this morning. The judge appeared really irritated when he took the bench. I was slightly irritated by what had transpired. So far, what we know is that the judge was upset about an article that came out yesterday. He or she accused someone, either from the prosecution or the defense, of lying about this article, whose source is unclear. So, what we think it could be, though, is related to anything that occurred during Friday's secret sessions. Someone spilled the beans, according to the court. The courtroom was blocked off for around 20 minutes, with all doors and windows locked in order to conduct the hearing in secret. What exactly happened during that time is unclear. The wandering room to do it. Thus, both the defense and the prosecution have stated that they were unaware of this piece until very recently and were adamant that they were not involved in the leak. Given their positions as leaders of the two camps, it appeared as though the court was targeting Maureen Comey and Mark Agnifilo in particular. On one side, we have Maureen Comey, who is representing the prosecution, and on the other, we have Mark Agnifilo, who is acting as lead counsel for the defense. So, he went to the extreme and alleged that someone had broken the court's sealing order. In addition, if they are aware that they need to identify the culprit, that would be great. According to them, criminal contempt charges are the most severe measure that the judge might impose. He appears to be taking this seriously and was visibly irritated by the whole leak incident. To reiterate, we don't have all the facts, but we think the article may have been published recently by a media outlet discussing the events of the sealed or supposed to be sealed court proceedings that took place on Friday. Who else was present in the courtroom? Elizabeth, I must inquire. When all eyes are on Diddy, how does he feel? It appeared like everyone was on edge this morning when the judge was kind of, I hate to use the word admonish, talking to both sides. So I don't want to say necessarily if he was leaning either way, but I would say little to no reaction because I don't want to guess and be wrong. I couldn't gauge his reaction to everything, like whether he was confused or if he might have known about it. So I couldn't really tell either way just what his reaction actually was. As a result, this disclosure could lead to criminal proceedings in the future. However, the problem of the jurors remains. All right, the sixth juror has already been discussed. It's been a long conversation. This juror has been dismissed from the jury without further consideration. The court informed the panel that, incidentally, juror 6 is no longer serving. It defies explanation. Stay out of it. Keep it to yourself. There aren't a ton of solutions for these, but it makes sense for the case and its integrity. We have received few responses as well. Jurseven is still a problem because he allegedly told other people about this situation. Judge. All right, we'll talk about these matters, Jurseven, after the day is over. It is still early in the afternoon when this recording was made. So far, I have no answers. Please be assured that you will be notified promptly once the information is available. For the most recent information, let's consult Elizabeth. Unrelated to the removal of a juror. Our sole other revelation in open court concerned juror number 7, and this is all we know about it. We don't know if that had anything to do with the just published story or if it's related to somehow else. What is known, however, is that the judge has promised to resolve the matter in the end, whatever it may be. Except for the sixth juror, whose dismissal was announced yesterday, a fact about which we are previously aware. No additional jurors have been removed from the panel thus far. But another juror's dismissal has not occurred as of yet. While we're on the subject of Elizabeth, I must inquire, how is the jury's current composition? Since the replacement of jurist Dix, this man served on the jury alongside them for over a month and a half, if we're being really honest. Without warning, he departs, and a substitute enters to take his place. What then is the dynamic? Yeah, I don't know if I've noticed or experienced a change in vibe since the juror was dismissed, but I can say that yesterday, with the knowledge that there is one fewer juror in the box, it looked very different. I can admit, though, that the defense was concerned about this. Moving forward, they were somewhat worried about the vibe, particularly for the whole jury. They sought clarification from the judge and the jury personnel as to what had been communicated regarding the dismissal of this particular juror. To the defense, and even today, when one of the jurors was excused for saying things like, "It's interesting," or "Okay, man, we just lost on" type of thing, which is the case. As a result, I could alter that by shifting my energy. Quote. As far as I can tell, they are still diligently noting and paying attention to the fact that the defense is moving slowly with their case. I will leave you hanging because, once again, we do not have an answer as of this recording. Next, we will go over what is known. The testimony of the witnesses. The witness who is currently testifying is Delisa Penland, a special agent with the U.S. Attorney's Office, also known as a summary witness. Her testimony began yesterday and continued into this morning, Tuesday. The jury saw the now infamous freak-off recordings yesterday for the first time. We will hear from Elizabeth shortly about what else they witnessed today. We need to cover the meat and potatoes of this summary witness's testimony, which includes topics like charges and receipts before we can go on to that and the freak-off videos. So, for instance, the government suggests returning to the London hotel. Which guests remained that day? Cassie Ventura, Sean Combs, and Jules Theodore. Just in case you forgot, Jules was either an entertainment or an escort. What are these Amex charges? The government inquired. Tickets for Jules Theodore's Virgin America flight. Could you please tell me which airline is linked to this fee? Flights operated by American Airlines from JFK to LA. The end too? This is Clayton Howard's, often known as Dave's, 4th season here. Dave is a performer and escort. I don't understand. An itemized bill for overseas travel. Entertainment by Bad Boy. I don't understand. A journey taken by Jules Theodore. How did you settle the bill? American Express account belonging to Sean Combs. I don't understand. What is this? We are aware that Frank Black is one of Diddy's aliases. He is making the booking at the Intercontinental Hotel in Times Square under that identity. The amount of $46,786 was paid on the Amex card for the damage to the penthouse. Multiple signature bank accounts paid that monthly bill. It is clear from this summary evidence that the government paid for several escorts' lodging, transportation, and meals. We can supposedly figure out what transpired in these hotel rooms. Then there's the damage, which amounts to $46,000. I suppose I'm rounding up because the total was $46,786. The damage to the penthouse that was charged to his American Express is $47,000. Holy cow, the jury also perused these texts. Weird date. Friday, March 5, 2016. Do any of you recall that particular date? The purported assault on the Intercontinental Hotel. Plus, these are messages that Cassie and Diddy exchanged. Cassie claims that it is ill to believe that one's actions are acceptable. Keep your distance from me, please. A premiere is coming up. Why? Because you may recall that her film The Perfect Match is set to premiere soon. Tell Diddy to call you. Assist me. He texted twice, "I need your assistance." Arrest me, please. He threatened to never speak to you again unless you picked up his 3 separate texts. Afterwards, there are a number of transfers of calls. Cassie ignores Diddy's calls. KK, the previous head of staff, calls Cassie. KK Christina Cora, the famous woman pictured in the bathrobe next to P. Diddy has been shown in that photo a dozen times already. KK. Cassie dials the number for the woman in the bathrobe. KK. Next, there's the squabble with D-Rock, who served as head of security for a while. Also, D-Rock has sent SMS urging him to leave the area before his arrest. He keeps ignoring her. In the midst of it all, Cassie went to bed with Diddy. Not only are there a lot of calls happening, but there are also messages between KK, D-Rock, and Carrie Morgan, Cassie's ex-best friend who testified against Diddy and claimed physical abuse, among others. This was going to be my big day, Diddy, Cassie. At one point, Cassie texts me, "I would want to remain in bed right now." On cross-examination, more passages were shown. The ones from August 5th, 2009 are these. By the looks of the text I'm going to read in the future, you might assume they're on the defense side, even if I didn't mention that we were in cross-exam. When would you like to go completely bonkers? Diddy asks. Haha. My reaction is that I'm always prepared to lose it, Cassie added. This is Cassie's second text message to Diddy. She can't focus because she is so aroused, she says. Get a bag for us. Thus, the defense presents the jury with a couple of these passages before interrogating the summary witness. Wait, was that included in your summary? The witness denies it. Did you incorporate this in your defense? It was not my responsibility to add anything. Rather, I was to verify the accuracy of the content. Accordingly, the defense offers a handful additional text. These ones are from Jules, the escort I spoke about earlier. You boys are very cute, but I really need to get some sleep. Loella. Plus, he's making a point about how frequently they engage in sexual activity. Well, that's more of a slang term. The way they mate is reminiscent of rabbits. They're having sex like rabbits. Having sex like rabbits. Having sex like rabbits. Here are some additional texts for Diddy and Cassie. My love for you is immense, Diddy says. You are everything to me. Why did this occur? I wonder that too, Cassie responds. She expresses her boredom and horniness in another text. FO, short for freak out, is not what I'm requesting. What are your preferences? Dak craving a puff? Get some fresh air. We should get out and enjoy ourselves. I will retrieve the value. As long as Jules was in the adjacent room, I was happy. Once again, Jules is led back to Rhodes. Does the current presentation of these texts to the jurors make them feel novel, or are they actually new? I need a response from you, Elizabeth. Looking at the American Express credit card account, we can see that a lot of money is spent on booking trips and hotel rooms. On booking trips and hotel rooms. That's about it for what we're seeing new. Also, that's a substantial sum of money. It goes without saying that Diddy's credit card bill is far more than $500 or $1,000. A few $100,000 is a reasonable estimate. Therefore, it's possible that it's the most recent data we're viewing. What happened? In reality, I will never be able to get my hands on this proof. The video violates it in some way. They are obstructed. The usual procedure is for the jurors to put on their headphones. This will allow them to view their own screens while blocking off the main exhibit screens. Therefore, it is difficult for anyone in the gallery to see. Reporters like Elizabeth Milner have been inside the courtroom and can tell you things like, you can't hear exactly what's happening, but you can hear if it's like loud or screaming or whatever when someone is using headphones. Oh. Reportedly, it sounded nothing like a typical conversation. No hushed tones, flowing ideas, etc. Excited communications was the best way to describe it. Someone might have been able to overhear what sounded like shouting or screaming or whatever. Let's visit Elizabeth Miller right now to hear her thoughts on these bizarre exhibits. Yeah, so they've been showing the sexually explicit videos that occurred during Diddy's relationship with Cassie Ventura, as well as the freak-off videos, and we were wondering where this was all leading after we saw the text message exhibits. This kind of show could have been Cassie's way of exerting control over these specific tastes, in my opinion. However, today, it was performed really frequently. And inside the courtroom, the jurors all wear headphones, so we can't hear or see anything on the open speakers, the exhibit screen, where the gallery can see these exhibits, or I should apologize to everyone if I'm speaking too quickly. I had too much Celsius during one of those breaks. The jury, however, has acted professionally throughout the process of viewing these extremely graphic and sexually explicit videotapes. I will mention, though, that there was one juror left out who, in my opinion, was the same one demoted from alternate to present, serving as essentially a primary juror. In terms of the videos playing at 2 or 3 minute intervals, which is a long time to watch sexually explicit videos, especially in public. I noticed that he took his headphones off pretty quickly after each one, thinking it was over, and then Tenejura said, "Okay, on to the next one." Oh. It seemed like the videos went on for what felt like an eternity to them, maybe 20 or 30 minutes. But honestly, they didn't seem to care about anything other than wanting them to end. After that, they headed for lunch. I think it's a perfect method to get children interested in lunch. And also, these can be somewhat weighty, don't you think? Alleged sexual assaults are what we're dealing with here. Cassie had previously told the jury that she did not want to take part in any of this. Moreover, they have just seen her on camera. Sex, or a sexual act of some kind, is obviously involved. And does the experience of watching these extremely graphic images affect jurors differently depending on their gender? Do you know the solution? I don't perceive much of a difference between the male and female jurors in terms of their individual characteristics. And here is the problem with that. Because of the enormous exhibit screen, my seat in the courtroom is somewhat blocked from the view. The female jurors, at least in the footage I've seen so far, seem to lean in such a way that their faces are obscured. To be honest, I'm merely looking behind their back. To make matters worse, I can't seem to gauge their reaction to these freak-off videos and similar content. Regarding the level of professionalism displayed by each individual, I would say it's about average. Not that I've noticed anyone chuckling, covering their eyes, or removing their headphones too early. On the other hand, I can see somebody removing them when they're getting bored of hearing everything. My next few questions are more general in nature, and I want to ask Elizabeth about Diddy's demeanor throughout this whole ordeal. King Jesse Webster has said that she is our eyes and ears in the courtroom, and I think he's right. However, I wouldn't go so far as to say that he was smug or arrogant. Based on my observations of him, it appears that he is curious in the jury's reaction to the allegedly sexually explicit tapes, also known as the freak-off tapes. Considering how long and intensely these were performed today, I saw a glimpse of him peering over to the jury box, as if to gauge their reaction. As the direct testimony of Delisa Penland was coming to a close and the cross-examination was about to begin, it appeared to me that he was acting in accordance with his usual manner. What about other people's attitudes as well? By government, I mean people like Comey, Mark Agnifilo, and Tenny Garagos on the defense. So, how is everyone's energy? The witness's testimony, the summary charts, and the summary exhibits. There are a lot of text messages, so it's not the most compelling testimony. We've seen videos, even just the sexually graphic ones revealed in court today. The jury has seen, I assume, pictures or screenshots of this. I would imagine that watching these videos for longer periods of time could be influencing their emotions in some way. But from what I can see in terms of overall vitality, it's shocking because, nobody has seen much of anything yet. But with the prosecution dropping its charges, maybe you should check back to see what's coming up next. The defense will only present their case for the next few days, and we're only just beginning to see light at the end of the tunnel. After the jury has deliberated and reached a verdict, I believe we can get a better sense of how each side is feeling, maybe even across the board. Regarding P. Diddy's family, this is about his mother Janice and her role in his son Quincy's life. Every member of CH has gone in and out. Akaisha, his sister. Oh, yes. B's relatives are the order of appearance is rather different. Today, Justin made an appearance. And it has been quite a while since we last saw them, so I guess we can expect them to return for an argument, or, at the very least, the beginning of the defense case. Yet, so far this week, we haven't encountered Combs or Quincy, though it is only Tuesday. Hence, it's anybody's guess. Perhaps they will be present tomorrow. Since we have Thursday off to celebrate the holiday with everyone else, maybe they will turn up on Friday instead. There you have it. Straight from Elizabeth, Thursday is Juneteenth, therefore P. Diddy is having a shorter week than usual. In any case, we're going on a day trip, so there's no need to fret. You will be treated to the premiere of an episode replete with scandal on Thursday. Christina, our editor, deserves a lot of credit for cutting it in advance so that everyone could enjoy it that day. However, I believe the prosecution will most likely rest its case tomorrow, either on Wednesday or Friday, due to our Thursday off. Deliberations may be necessary in this case because the defense anticipates that their case will take 2 to 5 days. The matter could be presented to the jury, and they could have the opportunity to deliberate it by the conclusion of next week. To continue then, make sure you don't miss a thing by subscribing and don't stop submitting messages to our tip line. It's a controversy on crime.com and the law. Much obliged for tuning into this episode of Scandal. Hi, I'm Sierra Gillespie, and I'll be happy to have you back next time.